Well, hi, friends, and welcome to NC Family's weekly update for the week ending Friday, February the 14th. Last week, you heard from Mitch, Jerry, and Sharon on our team. This week, it's just me, and as usual, we have some important news items and updates for you. Last week, Sharon shared about President Trump's executive order, quote, keeping men out of women's sports, for which we were incredibly grateful. Since then, the presidential executive orders have kept coming, and there are two I would like to specifically point out this week. The first is an executive order to eradicate anti-Christian bias. And I want to specifically read from the executive order. It says, the purpose and policy, it is the policy of the United States and the purpose of this order to protect the religious freedoms of Americans and end the anti-Christian weaponization of government. The founders established a nation in which people were free to practice their faith without fear of discrimination or retaliation by their government. So some pretty strong words, and rightly so, in this executive order. It goes on to say, the president goes on to say, my administration will not tolerate anti-Christian weaponization of government or unlawful conduct targeting Christians. The law protects the freedom of Americans and groups of Americans to practice their faith in peace, and my administration will enforce the law and protect these freedoms. My administration will ensure that any unlawful and improper conduct policies or practices that target Christians are identified, terminated, and rectified. Again, very strong language. We're extremely grateful for this. I think it's particularly interesting that this executive order also establishes a task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. The chair of that task force is none other than the United States Attorney General, and members of the task force include the U.S. Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Secretary of Education, and on and on. These are the top leaders in our national government that are part of this task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. So this is not just a window dressing. This is a solid group of our top political leaders of the United States that are coming together for this purpose. They are also directed by the executive order to look within their particular agencies and root out any anti-Christian bias that they can identify. So pretty significant and an amazing executive order by the president. Kind of along the same lines, I wanted to point out too that there was the next day, the president issued an executive order establishing the White House Faith Office. That's hard to say. Let me repeat that. The White House Faith Office. And the purpose is to assist faith-based entities, community organizations, and houses of worship in their efforts to strengthen American families, promote work and self-sufficiency, and protect religious liberty. So a big focus of the president's executive orders are to reinforce the critical and fundamental role that faith plays in the lives of American citizens. So really exciting stuff, really important stuff. And there will be a link under this video to the page on the president's website where you can get access to these executive orders and read to your heart's content and find out more about them. Also, in just the last couple days, the president's nominee for the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and the president's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., were confirmed by the U.S. Senate. So more of his appointments are getting put into place. There's a whole host of additional appointments or appointees that will be considered by the United States Senate. Those are in process. And so there's a lot more left to be done in that realm. But some of these top officials are getting put into place. So as I mentioned, there's a link below the video to the White House Presidential Actions page. So again, you can read more about the executive orders. On the more local front, the North Carolina General Assembly is in session and gearing up a bit. They've taken some action to provide more funding and support for hurricane relief in western North Carolina, which has been stated as their top priority, as well it should be. Next week, the appropriations subcommittees will start meeting to hear annual reports from their staff about their particular budgetary issue areas. And so that's always a sign that the budgeting process, which is a big focus of the legislative session, is really gearing up. So far, there have been a couple of hundred bills introduced in the State House and State Senate, and we are literally reviewing each and every one of them to identify those that could impact critical issues like the sanctity of human life, religious liberty, parental rights, school choice, adoption, gambling, marijuana legalization, and other matters that we know you care deeply about. So far, we have seen a bill that would allow gamblers to take a tax deduction on their state-level taxes for gambling losses. Another one that would require local school boards to adopt policies prohibiting the use of cell phones in schools. That's going to be an interesting debate. A bill to further protect children from the dissemination of harmful materials and indecent exposure, and a bill that would recognize the state's official Fried Apple Pie Festival. So some serious bills, some lighter bills, but more and more bills are being introduced every day. And we have a few up our sleeves, so stay tuned for future editions of the Weekly Update. We encourage you to watch your email inboxes in the coming weeks as bills of interest are being filed and will start to move through the legislative process. We will be sending out action alerts to let you know when it's most important for you to contact your legislators regarding issues that you care about. Also, we encourage you to reach out and contact NC Family if you have any questions about legislative matters. Just visit our website at ncfamily.org. Again, that's ncfamily.org. To send us an email or simply give us a call at 919-807-0800. Again, that's 919-807-0800. And we would be happy to answer any questions for you. And also, if you have issues that are of concern to you that kind of fall within our bailiwick, feel free to reach out and let us know that as well. So as always, thank you so much for your prayers, your partnership, and your support. That's all we've got for this week, but continue to be a lot going on, so we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks again, friends, and God bless you.